Get to know your LCSO. Information flows as learn and grow. With every episode we gotta know. Oh yeah, LCSO, let's go.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Mike Chapman. I want to welcome you to another podcast episode of Getting to Know Your LCSO. Today we're joined by Sergeant Terry Rudolph, and Terry's been with us for how many years now?
I just started my 25th year.
Wow, okay, so a seasoned veteran here, and Terry is like our expert there when it comes to traffic and e-bike safety and all that, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But what I like to do when I start out these podcasts is find out a little bit about why people got involved in law enforcement. We've had stories where people grew up hearing the stories, and dads and were law enforcement officers, and we have some folks that just graduated college, decided, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do. Let me try this. And so we're having, it's interesting because it's across the board. So before we get started on the e-bike safety, which is where we're going to go with this, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been here for over 2 decades here. So what got you interested in law enforcement, and why the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office?
So I wanted to be a West Virginia game warden when I was in high school, and I had a little bit of law enforcement background in my family. My great-granddad was actually a constable for the state of West Virginia back in the 1930s. And then I had another great-grandfather that was a prison guard at Camp 7 over in Whitehall area, or White Post, rather. Okay. And my father-in-law was Winchester City, and so I always had a sense of community service and what have you. And I was trying to get my foot in the door in 1999. There's 105 of us that showed up to take the written test for the Frederick County Sheriff's Office.
Oh, wow.
And I was down here working in construction and wired some deputies' houses and got to talking to them. Somebody brought me an application, and I applied. A year later, I was hired, and here I am.
Well, that's good. Well, we're happy that you decided to come with us, and happy that you're at the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, because you've given a lot to this career, and I know along the way you've had a couple assignments: patrol, motors. What other assignments have you had along the way?
So I did patrol for 12 years.
Okay.
I was one of the very first people that was assigned to our executive detail in 2005. That lasted until 2023.
Okay,
I did that assignment for 6 months. And went back to patrol, and then I went to traffic, rode a motor for 9 years, highlight of my career. I'm on the bomb squad. I've been on the bomb squad here since 2010 and got it certified in 2012. There's like 2,500 of us, I think, nationwide that's bomb squad certified as a public safety bomb techs. Okay. So that's been really exciting and rewarding. Okay. And then recently I got promoted to sergeant in 2020. 4. Okay. So, or no, I'm sorry, 25. Okay. And yeah, so midnight's on patrol in your late 40s. It's an ideal thing to be doing.
So now you're assigned to a particular station.
Yes, sir.
Della South. And
yes,
I know we have a lot of incidents down that way, and actually throughout the county, but mostly down that way, and in Ashburn, some in Sterling here, with regards to our problems with e-bikes, and we're constantly getting information from and requests, from, folks that work at the county, parents, with regards to safety when it comes to these e-bikes. And we've had several really bad accidents up here when it comes to e-bikes, one very recently here. And what we're trying to do is get the word out here. And I know you've been instrumental in trying to get the word out. So tell us a little bit about what your involvement was initially with e-bike safety, and what you've done regarding the community and trying to get the word out about trying to make things safe out there.
So a few years ago, when I was assigned as the traffic station deputy at Dulles South, that was my first interaction with these electric devices. Right. And when I saw the first ones, I wasn't exactly sure what it was that I was looking at. Right. And so I actually took some video, took some pictures of them, went to my station captain, and I was like, this is going to be an issue. Right. We need to figure out what we can do to get in front of this. Right. And his response was to me, well, you probably know more about it at this point than I do, since you've already noticed it. Right. See what you can find out. And so obviously, increasingly as the year went on,
Uh-huh.
more and more of these devices were being seen.
Right.
More and more issues with them, and trying to make contact with the users and things of that nature. A lot of times when they are committing a traffic offense and you try to pull them over, they would run away.
Right.
So, there was different tactics involved in trying to be able to approach them, and not an enforcement style type
Right.
interaction.
Right.
And then it was just trying to educate not just the users of the devices about what the traffic laws was or what the pedestrian laws were,
Right.
but also educate us and gather
Right.
information for us so we knew what we were looking at and what we were
Right.
dealing with, what we were up against.
So I know, when I was a kid, I had a mini bike when I was a kid, and I just remember, I think the top end of that might have been 18 or 20 miles an hour.
Right.
I mean, it was old Briggs and Stratton, 3 horsepower motor on those, and now I look at these e-bikes, and I think there's so many different categories of them. It seems like, and some go very fast. So tell us about the different types of e-bikes that we're seeing out there and the dangers associated with them.
So Sheriff, right there from the get-go, the term e-bike, we got to be careful when we're saying e-bike, right? Because everybody's thinking that anything electric is an e-bike, and in fact it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So the e-bikes, there's 3 different classes of the e-bikes, and e-bikes top out at a 750 watt power and don't travel any faster than 28 miles per hour.
Okay.
So once you get over 750 watts into 1500 watts, that puts you into moped category. And I don't know if you remember the mopeds from the 70s that had like the gas and the pedals on it. So now
I'm sad to say that I do, actually, yes.
So and I was late 70s, but I experienced some of it in the 80s. And but so now you take away that gas power and you just have electric, and so we're seeing some of those too. Well, you can take the pedals off of them and you can just go under with the electric power, and you can do the same thing with the class 1 to the class 3 e-bikes. You don't even have to pedal them anymore. You just push a button or twist a throttle and they go on their own. Class 1 and 2 top out at 20 miles per hour. Class 3 top out at 28 miles per hour. Anything that goes over 28 miles per hour has the ability to go over 28 miles per hour up to 35 miles per hour, or is in that 750 watt to 1500 watt power range. Those are classified as mopeds. Anything over 1500 watts has the ability to go over 35 miles per hour is an electric motorcycle. So, and what I try to explain to parents a lot of times is, think about just going to the Honda store or the Harley Davidson or BMW and buying an electric motorcycle that is appropriate for the street, like an electric car, and put your child on that and allow them to ride that around town and to the grocery store or school, what have you, because that's legit what they're doing. The devices that they're allowing them to use are only rated for off-road use.
So I look at these and I see, and just what you were going through there, it makes it really a complex issue because as far as, and I know you put this together here, this e-bike safety, and I know it was a lot of work that was done on that. Very, very good.
A lot of work.
But honestly, when you go through this and you see all the various categories of this and what the rules and regulations and when you have to wear a helmet, when you don't have to wear a helmet, it's really quite complex. And it's and what I see here happening because I see a lot of the complaints and concerns that come in. We're seeing a lot of these kids now that really shouldn't be. That number one are driving these things not safely. They're operating in a without helmets or helmets that they're not strapping on, or they're putting on their on whatever their their handlebar or something, and it's really not. They're in a dangerous situation, okay, and they're going fast. They're working. Some of these kids are riding on sidewalks, some on the streets, some are riding out in gangs and stuff like that, and it's really getting to be quite an issue out in the public because it's a real safety concern, not only for the operators of these e-bikes, but for other motorists that are out there because they've got to avoid, they got to watch out what's going on. They got people coming up on the sides. They got you're walking, your baby in a stroller, and next thing somebody's kind of on the bike or on the bike path or the walking path with that, So So what are the things that you're seeing there? Because I think the area that you're in, there probably has the largest amount of complaints. So what are you seeing? What's the most frequent complaints you're seeing?
So mostly what we see is inappropriate use by just traffic infractions, or there's some stunt riding and things like that. But a lot of what we see is fail to stop upon entering a highway. Now, the class 1 and 2 and 3 are permitted to be ridden on the sidewalks and the trails.
Okay.
That's permitted. They have all the rights that the pedestrian traffic does using their crosswalks and whatever. Once you get into that moped status, that is street use only.
Okay.
So, and you can't ride a moped in a bicycle lane. So even if a street has a bicycle lane on it, you're not permitted to ride a moped in that bicycle lane. It has to be ridden in the lane of travel. And then, of course, anything else that is for off-road intended use only isn't permitted on the trails and isn't permitted on the roadway. And we see a lot of that. I think the Dulles South area, with how close stuff is why parents allow or permit, thinking that their kids aren't going to go that far. Right. But they go much further. For instance, I was working the Brambleton Town Center last summer, and I stopped a couple kids who were stunt riding in the parking lot. Right. And we had a chat, and they both rode all the way from Luckett's, which I'm sure some of your folks are very familiar with how far the distance is from Luckett's to Brambleton.
Right.
So I was like, well, how did you guys get here? Yeah. And so they explained to me that they rode down the shoulder of Route 15. And then they got into Leesburg and got on the bike trail, and they rode the bike trail down to Belmont Ridge Road, and then they rode the side trails on Belmont Ridge Road all the way to the Brambleton Town Center area, and then they just hang out there with their friends, and then they ride home in the dark, back up Route 15, etc. So I was able to, have a pretty positive interaction with those guys. We got a friend of one of their friends' parents came and picked them up, took the motorcycles, and obviously took them home so they didn't ride back home. But
yeah, well, I mean, Route 15 is dangerous enough just for regular traffic, let alone something like that.
Yeah,
and I know when you put this together, because we talked about this this pamphlet that you did. I mean, it's just there's so many variances in the regulations and the size of the the CCs and all this other kind of stuff, and when you got to wear a helmet, when you don't. One of the things we were able to do was to kind of sit down with Delegate David Reed and kind of go through this and explain it. It's not just an enforcement issue, but for enforcement, it's tough, because if you're trying to enforce these rules, you got to know exactly all the nuances with regards to all these different categories that these are in. And so we were looking to try to do some sort of notification, maybe on someplace on the bike, that says, okay, this bike requires, a helmet, or you can't be on this one if you're under the age of 14 or 15, whatever the case is. And we were trying to work on that. He wasn't able to get it past the General Assembly on this because it's different when you look at the different areas that we have. Okay, so we're a pretty populated area. Other areas not so populated throughout the state, so it's hard to do one sort of law that fits all.
Absolutely.
And so it's making it quite difficult for us. And so what we're trying to do, and this is where, I mean, you're making a great effort here, is communicating to the parents. So I think the parents don't quite understand how dangerous these are. But we get a lot of complaints from the parents whose kids don't have e-bikes. But we have to make the parents aware of all the dangers that are associated with this. So what have you done when it comes to educating the parents on this?
So basically, as long as the infraction that I stop somebody for isn't super egregious, they're going to wind up getting probably a written warning. And what I've directed my deputies to do is give a written warning unless it rises to the need of a summons. And if it's somebody that has offended multiple times, like they get a summons and they get their bike towed. Right. Otherwise, we're given written warnings, and we're having the parents respond to the scene, pick up the device, and then take the device home that way. Most of the time, we get a pretty receptive, attitude from that, and hope that we're getting the message across. And a lot of times, I just explain to the parents, there's a reason why 14-year-olds here don't have driver's licenses, because they haven't had
Right.
the formal training, and so
They don't know the rules of the road.
They don't know the rules.
Yeah, and a lot of them sometimes they're wearing earbuds
Absolutely.
or whatever. They're not really paying attention. Either.
Absolutely, and that's really what it boils down to, and it's tough, and bicycle enforcement isn't something that I just started a few years ago. Like several years ago, we had a lot of problems with the WNOD trail,
Right.
Where just pedal bicycles were running the stop signs or whatever, and we had some different discussions with that, and we had to get some things straightened out, and it's been a constant awareness, but now with these devices and more usage of them, because I mean, let's just get to it and say kids are lazy,
right?
And they don't want to pedal, right? I mean, who really wants to pedal when you can just push a button?
Exactly.
And so they just ride these things everywhere. And like the kids coming from Luckett's, they're not going to ride a pedal bicycle from Luckett's to Brambleton.
Yeah.
But why is a 12-year-old that lives in Brambleton coming all the way over to South Riding across Route 50, right? Route 50 in Loudoun County Parkway, one of our most dangerous intersections in the county, on an electric bike so he can go to breakfast at a restaurant, that's on the south side of Route 50, I mean, and it baffles me. And like, I, as a parent, I would have never allowed my child to do that.
Right.
I mean, go outside and play by all means, but there are safety concerns.
Yeah. And actually pedaling the bike, you got to work for it a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's actually,
Absolutely.
There's maybe some lessons to be learned there, So I know you have, because we were talking about this, you got some very interesting statistics here with regards to the amount of bikes that have been purchased over the years, to the amount of fatal accidents as a result of this, as a result of some of these things. So go ahead and give some of these, because I was looking at them, they're pretty fascinating. And what you got here, for example, nearly 50% of the users do not wear a helmet.
Yeah. I mean, and it's sometimes even if they are wearing a helmet, they're not wearing the appropriate helmet, right? So, these bikes that are doing 70 miles an hour, they're wearing bicycle helmets. That's not the appropriate helmet for that type of equipment, right? There's one medical group that has actually deemed this e-bike movement, if you would say, as a national health crisis, as there's been a 300% increase in reported injuries since 2019.
Wow.
So that's across the nation.
Right.
Now, when we kicked this off last year, just here in Loudoun County, we had a 70% increase from one year to the next.
Wow.
Now, while that number might sound big as percentage wise, it wasn't that much. I think it was, in reality, the numbers were like 24 or 26 or something like that, but that's still 24 or 26 people that got seriously injured that could have been avoided.
Sure.
And then there was a study from California that showed that injuries have more than doubled each year since 2019.
Wow.
And NHTSA reports that approximately 45,000 injuries nationwide annually right now.
Wow.
In addition to, if you look at fatal crashes regarding bicycles, and then, of course, with the increase of the introduction of the electric stuff, in 2011, we had a 69% fatality rate for bicycle crashes.
Right.
And now anything that was quote unquote bicycle related in 2021, 85% fatality rate.
Wow.
And it's attributed to the sales of the e-bikes.
Sure.
So in 2018, 50,000 units were sold in the United States. And in 2022, 527,000 units were sold.
Yeah.
So, and then a Columbia School of Medical Health, they reported that 1.9 million injuries from 2019 to 2022 that is electric device related in the United States.
Wow.
So
I think the key here is, because the parents are buying these bikes for their children,
or allowing the kids to buy them.
Yeah.
And that's a manufacturer, sales, dealer issue, right? And that's something that's almost something that the federal government needs to regulate, like with vehicles. Vehicles have a safety standard. Who buys them? Like, I can't let my 14-year-old go to the local dirt bike dealership and buy a motorcycle, right? But they can order one of these 70-mile-an-hour electric motorcycles off of Amazon, and nobody blinks an eye at it.
Wow. So, this is really an education Well, not just for the kids, for learning the rules of the road. If you're going to have one of these things, to making sure that you got to wear a helmet, whether it's required or not, depending on the size of the bike. Certainly it should be. You should be wearing a helmet. You should know exactly what level of bicycle or e-bike is appropriate for the age of your child. But the parents really need to know because they're the ones that have a lot to lose here.
Absolutely.
You certainly, if you're not paying attention to this and you buy one of these for your kids, and you can't be out there when they're riding it, so you don't really know where they're going or what they're doing, and whether they're breaking the rules of the road and endangering themselves. So it's important that we continue to get this message out to the parents and to the kids, but mostly to the parents. You may not have the attention span on the kids that you need to actually to make an impact, but certainly the parents need to know what they're getting into when they buy these things.
For sure.
Yeah. So, and I know you're working hard on that, and this is another example here why we do these podcasts. It's not only to get to know what we do here at the LCSO, but what can we do to reach out to the people that we serve and educate them on what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, but also what they can do to kind of help us keep our community safe.
Well, we have done the public forums, where we've had parents and community come out, had a pretty good couple sessions with that.
Right.
We've reached out to some of the schools in the area and provided brochures for them. We got our SROs trying to check our bike racks and things of that nature. Those guys have their hands full doing stuff, but
so that's our school resource officers that when they're at the schools checking the bike racks.
Yep, we got them trying to keep an eye on the bike racks and make contact. And then of course our traffic guys out there, they're trying to do their part too, and just our regular patrol deputies.
Right.
They take those opportunities to provide the education if possible. Yeah. We definitely, as we get into summer, those calls for service and complaints related to this issue is going to continue to increase if we as a community, parents, kids, everybody don't kind of reel it in.
Right. So you hear a lot. You hear this whole of government approach, but this is a whole of government and community approach.
Absolutely.
Whatever we can do to facilitate legislation that helps protect our children here. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep them healthy and safe, but also working with the parents and educate them to say, look, you may want to think twice about purchasing one of these for your kids. Maybe they're not quite ready for it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're telling you things that may not necessarily be true about the safety concerns on these, and to make sure that that we're doing everything we can from an enforcement standpoint. And if you do it from all angles, there, I think we have the ability to make an impact on this. But I think a lot of it has to do with getting the word out and being very proactive on this.
Absolutely, and we've got the brochure going. We got it on the website. We put up the signboards to remind people.
Right.
As diligent as the operators of these devices need to be, we need to make sure that our other motorists are doing their part too, like with the distracted driving and safe speeds and all of it, right? Because it isn't just like if somebody gets hit or strikes a vehicle from this, and that's a lot of times what happens with one of these electric devices striking a vehicle, getting involved in a crash. It's just not the person that was on the two wheels that suffers. It is also the person that was in that striking vehicle from whatever mental anguish that they have from that, or there was a lady who she got chest pains because she thought she was having a heart attack from the stress of it happening. Anybody that was around that happened to see it or helped, or it really affects more than just the person that quote unquote got struck. Right.
No, it's a broad impact there. And so fortunately, not only did you do this in English for everybody, you also had it done in Spanish as well. So so we're trying to make sure we get that to all of our communities out here.
Absolutely.
And we just want to make sure that we're keeping kids safe. We want to make sure that the parents are aware. And again, what you mentioned about the other motorists there, what you'd have to live with, the tragedy. If a tragedy happens, that's something you got to live with as well for the rest of your life. So there's a lot of factors involved in this. Yeah,
for sure.
Well, Sarge, I want to thank you for coming in. This is great education.
I appreciate you having me.
No, thanks for being here. We appreciate all the work that you're doing out there. We got to keep this momentum going. We got to make sure that we're educating everybody on this, because this is really a whole everybody approach. And And so we thank you for your great efforts on this, and we want to keep it going forward. And thank you for all that you do. Appreciate your dedication to this agency and your dedication to serving our public.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.